plans for the country? If so, what are his plans? What plans does Barrow have for the country?
I think this was a contest between continuity and change. I mean, the opposition hardly proffered any solutions or any real plan. Barrow was an unknown quantity before the month of November. On the 8th, he was chosen as the leader of the opposition coalition. Hardly did anybody know him before then.
On the 8th of?
On the 8th of November. That was when he was chosen to lead the coalition of opposition parties, 7 parties.
For election on the 1st
on the 1st of December, less than a month. So I don't think it was on his individual merit. It was this yearning for change. People wanted to see the end of Jammeh. And when they were celebrating, they were chanting freedom. Some people use the word independence, saying Gambia has now got its independence. That tells you how much they were yearning for a change from what has been happening, at the very least, the last 10 years of President Jammeh's regime.
Let me just come quickly. This second part of Mr. Ransom's question, what are Barrow's plans for the country? Has he actually spoken to the people of the Gambia since he won?
He has not yet still addressed the nation. But he has granted a series of interviews. I spoke to him at least twice, and on both occasions I asked him for his plans. He did not give me any of his plans. After his winning, I was the first journalist to interview him. I called him up immediately, and then he said he had left his house on the day before and gone to his brother's house, where he wanted me to go and meet him, but I was able to get some quick reaction from him then to his victory. And then eventually I went to the house, and I asked him about his plans. He basically said that he was going to set up a cabinet. You could tell that this was not a man who was ready to lead. Probably because he did not expect to win. He had told me that he had in fact suggested that someone else should lead the coalition and not himself, and that it was thrust upon him. So probably because of that, he did not have any clear plan. So on both occasions, he didn't tell me any plans that he had, and I'm not sure anyone existed up to when he won the election.
Okay, don't forget that if you also have questions you'd like Umaru to answer, you can post them here on Facebook. Welcome to BBC Africa. Again, a reminder, I am Hassan Aruni, and this is Umaru Fofana, who's just come back from reporting on the historic Gambia elections. Andy Bassi asks, how were you able to communicate with the outside world since the internet and international calls were blocked?
Well, I had a BBC satellite equipment which enables me to call anywhere, anyhow, because it's not contingent upon the telecom system of any country. It's a satellite, kind of system. So even when internet was shut off and then the telephone lines abroad also were shut off, I was able to set up my satellite kits and I could get onto the internet. I could get onto telephone to call London to let them know what was happening in the Gambia.
Tell us a little bit about this whole internet thing and how the internet got cut off, how international calls got cut off, and the worries that created in the minds of people in the Gambia.
In the early hours of the eve of voting day of the 1st, which must have been on the 30th of November, I got a call from one of my sources very close to the president's office saying that they had just held a meeting with telecoms companies to ask them to shut off the internet. And I honestly did not believe that. So there was an email that was sent by the United States Embassy through the Gambia Press Union asking for journalists to go and use the press hub. And then I asked, will this press hub have its own VSATs? Because I understand that internet is going to be shut off tomorrow. And then it happened that before the tomorrow.
We have some network issues. connection into great. Therefore, there's an interruption. We
The internet
apologize
have
for
been
the
shut off.
quality
We are
of
not
the
sure why.
audio.
The government said it wanted to control security and all that, but people have some more skeptical or even cynical reasons as to why that happened. Why they shut off telephone calls overseas, I still am not sure. And why did they also block local SMSs? That still remains a puzzle to me. But conspiracy theorists are saying that it was a way to ensure that the opposition were not able to send out messages, results, because for the first time in the history of Gambian presidential election, votes were supposed to have been counted at every polling station. So it would have been a lot easier, conspiracists think, for opposition members to send in their results from every polling station via SMS and via WhatsApp. WhatsApp has always been banned in the Gambia. People are on WhatsApp because they use VPN, which is an app that blocks the identity of the WhatsApp and enables one to be able to get onto to WhatsApp. So that's basically what happened. It was very, very, very tough for people in the country.
So we have another question here from someone watching live on Facebook.
Okay, you're hearing the voice of Natasha Buti, who's helping us, who's producing this. Yes.
So Daniel is asking, does Jam have an opportunity to contest at the next election? Can he run again for president?
No.
Is this something you know about?
One of the things that the new administration says it's going to do is to introduce a two-term limit. It's not going to have any retroactive effect, as far as I know. In which case, by law, Jammeh, yes, can run. In his concession speech, he made it very
he's
clear
disqualified.
that
He's
he
run more than
remains
2
a member
times.
of...
He's disqualified. You cannot. One person cannot run more than 2 terms. After that, you
the
run again.
APRC
No. Once you
political
run,
party,
that's it.
and
You
that's
ran
going to
already.
continue working for the APRC party. So which means you cannot preclude anything. However, my sources, and this is unconfirmed, but they are very reliable sources, are saying that there are plans in the next 1 year to encourage Jammeh to leave the country because they believe that his continued stay there might undermine the peace.
Somebody called Rose Liverpool simply says, please, Umaru, I love you.
Oh, thank you very much. I hope my wife doesn't hear that.
Anyway, let's hear from Ibrahim Buka, who asks, what's next for President Jammeh after he steps down?
He says he's going to Kanila, his home. I mean, he's been able to transform Kanila. I've been there myself. It was a very sleepy, kind of almost hamlet when he became president. He's been able to open it up now. It's a place that for many years has been hosting international festivals. He would bring in artists from as far away as Venezuela and from many other countries in West Africa to attend the festival. He says he's going there. He's been farming. He says he's going back to his farm to grow crops and feed the people of the Gambia. I'm not sure whether that is, and that's something which he said in 2011 when I asked him just after he had cast his ballot then. I asked if he lost, what he was going to do. He said he wasn't going to lose, but that he said if he did lose, he was going to go to his village to farm. And that's something he has repeated this time around. We will see what happens.
Let's go to Nairobi in Kenya and Peter Ogana. What really made Yaya not want to try to challenge the outcome? I mean, this is the kind of response or reaction one usually sees in Africa where incumbents don't like to lose elections.
Yeah, exactly.
But he didn't.
Exactly. It's something which is still being investigated. My source says that there was frenetic negotiation on the night of the 1st up till dawn of the 2nd. Some say it was pressure, but some say it was really frenetic negotiations to ensure that Jammeh would concede defeat because it was very apparent that he had lost. I spoke to some intelligence officers who said that, the pressure was established. As to who piled the pressure for what is what I'm still investigating. One source says that there was a pressure and even some altercation between President Jammeh and some senior members of the Gambian army. The source says that the senior Gambian army officials wanted him to cancel the nullify the results, and that President Jammeh said no, he was going to stand by the results. Whereas the other source says But in fact, Jammeh wanted to nullify the results, but the military guys said they wouldn't because the people of Gambia had spoken that they wanted a new regime. Like I say, there's no clear-cut thing, but there indeed was some altercation between the president and some senior members of the army. But I also understand that there was some diplomatic pressure when it had become very clear that he had lost for him to concede.
A question from somebody from whose I see here on Facebook, and his name sounds Gambian, Tala Job.
Right.
And Tala Job wants to know, do you know why it took so long for the results to be announced? Initially they had promised that the Electoral Commission had said by midnight following the end of polling.
Right.
But it didn't happen until the next day.
It didn't happen that way. I interviewed the chairman of the Electoral Commission, who, by the way, a lot of people have given credit for the way this whole thing panned out. I spoke to him. I wondered why it took so long, because there was a time when there was a long hiatus. Results had been tallied. I'm sure they had all been in by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock p.m. And then they were churning out the tallied result based on each constituency. But then there was a long hiatus of about 4 hours when there was no result announced, which brought about a lot of speculation, fever speculation. So when I spoke to the commissioner after he had announced the final results, I wanted to know why it had taken so long for him to give out the result. He said they were busy still processing the results. That doesn't sound convincing to me, because at that level they were not processing the results. They were basically just collecting what had been tallied at tally centers and sent to the commission to announce. They had, like you rightly said, assured us that they would release the final result by midnight on Thursday nights. That did not happen. So I believe that the frenetic negotiation I was talking about, probably the heavy diplomatic hands that were being brought down, kind of like led to the long hiatus that made us not get the results until the afternoon of the following day.
Now here's an interesting question, Umar, because you're a BBC journalist and you're supposed to be fair to all contestants, equal time and all of that. But somebody calling themselves Gambia in Banjul asks, Umaru, why did you focus more on Jammeh and Barrow than Mama Kande during the elections? Mama Kande, the presidential candidate for the Gambia Democratic Congress Party. There were three presidential contenders, but we kept hearing from the two.
Yeah, actually, it's like in the United States elections, there were not only two candidates. You had another candidate, but hardly did anybody pay attention to them. We chose to focus on those who stood any chance.
High profile, we call it. We call
of
them.
Winning. And clearly,
profiles.
And as a result of indicated, those
Men with
two men were the only ones that stood any chance.
He has no profiles. That's why the focus was
Realistic
on him.
chance of winning.
He knew it. Everyone knew he had zero chance.
Clearly,
He had zero chance of winning.
Kande was a very good candidate. But the other thing that happened as well was I chased him at some point to get some reaction from him, even if not making him as a likely winner of the contest. But it was very difficult to reach out to him. At the last minute, I did get through to his public relations officer, but we reminded ourselves that on that day, that was a rest day, we were not allowed to put out any political broadcast. So therefore, even though the window wanted to give to him, we wanted to give to him eventually, we couldn't because of that ban on political campaigning on the eve of election.
And Ibrahim Ajalo in Banjul, the Gambia. Umaru, what single thing impressed you most during your time in the Gambia?
It's difficult for me to say one, but I can assure you that I went to Gambia just after being at the United States elections. And one marked similarity I saw was the fact that when people were campaigning, they would sing the national anthem of the Gambia, exactly as it happened in the United States. In other African countries where I have been to and covered elections, they would sing hymns, chants, and mantras of their political parties. But the Gambians stood by their national anthem, and I felt so proud of them. But the other thing was the peace